This is going to be the top 5 money wasters on like a short film or like a student film. I say short film, student film specifically because if you're making a feature film, especially if it's like a Hollywood film, you have more time and more money, and that sort of greases the wheels a little bit. But the way I'm thinking about it, if this is your independent project or it's a student project, you're going to have very limited resources, very limited time, and you're just going to try to get through the shoot and hopefully, get it in the can, as they say, get the footage into the edit and have enough footage that's compatible with itself to tell some kind of narrative that's close to what the script wants you to do. So this is all for narrative stuff. Music videos, wedding videos. That's all a different thing. This is talking about purely the narrative stuff, where you went out to make a movie with actors and a script and a location to tell some kind of story. Filmmaking, a mini feature film, kind of short film. Okay, so number 5, having a bunch of extras, working in crowds, especially in public, big money time waster. I've done it. I've learned from it. It's just even on Hollywood stuff, the hard days are the days where there's a bunch of extras because you need to coordinate, you need to wrangle. Everything takes longer. Everything takes long to set up and coordinate and plan for. There's a wardrobe aspect that makes it extra tricky. So even Hollywood stuff, it's tricky. But on short films, I'd say, the solution to dealing with crowds is just like try to narratively find a way to not do it. So, you can do tricks to make it like feel like there's a lot of people when there's not. But honestly, it's in my opinion, it's easier to write avoiding a big crowd scene if you can, like the party. I think in film school, the party scene was really common, where you had a bunch of people at the party. It soaks up so much time. If you can find a narrative reason not to do it, that's great. This also leads into sort of just the whole vibe of the whole video that I'm doing, which is, when you're on a short film, creatively write into the limitations, not out of the limitations. You want to use the limitations that you have around you, that you've either put on yourself or have been put on you, to find clever ways to work around the limitations. Because if you just try to push through and say, hey, I need 1 million people on set because we need 1 million actors, it's not going to work. Yeah. So never say never, but crowds, I've learned my lesson. I still have PTSD from a particular parking lot shoot I did one time that we did not have the parking lot closed, and that was just ridiculous. So anyway, moving on. Number 4, fancy camera movement or fancy actor blocking. We're talking about, cranes, jibs, oneers, or really, complicated choreography. For like a creative, like choreographical thing, it's very satisfying to get it right. On a short film where you're literally just trying to tell a story, complicated stuff takes time to set up. It takes time to plan, takes time to get right. And, Hollywood can do it because the experience level and the pay level and the money tends to be more than short films. When you're doing it yourself, it's exciting to try to do a oneer, but it's usually more trouble than it's worth. And most of the time in the edit, you're going to have to cut it up anyway. So, is there really a reason to do a complicated thing when, if you're just trying to get the beat of get across the room, just shoot that, it's usually not worth its time to do something complicated. So, solution is, just find the idea behind the idea and shoot that instead, because it's going to take all day to set up the oneer, and then you still got to get it right, and that's almost the hardest part anyway. So anyway, moving on. Number 3, complicated or high difficulty stunts or special effects. There's a reason Hollywood departments have entire stunt departments and entire special effects departments. It's a specialty. It's complicated. It tends to have a level of danger and safety involved. And so I got nothing wrong with, some grappling between actors, especially if they've staged combat training. But when you're talking about something that requires a big, complicated setup and then also getting it right, it's a lot like, the complicated camera stuff. It's going to take a long time to set up, and then it's going to be tricky to get it right. And especially on a short film where, time is everything because money is not available, you're gonna waste a lot of time. And also, even if you get it, the idea that you did it safely is a little dubious. And this is not a thing that's worth getting seriously injured or taken out for. So solution, again, is the note within the note. If you need a scrap, shoot the scrap. But if you need some complicated, stunt thing, and you really don't have a safe, reasonable, fast way to do it, cheat bits. Point to Robert Rodriguez, where he does the whole thing where he's going up the stairs in the alley and he throws the guitar. He just did all that. You just got it. He got exactly what he needed and nothing more. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, selling the bit tends to look better a lot of times than the literal bit, unless you're Tom Cruise. So if you're doing Tom Cruise movies, the realism is what's important. But for everybody else, sell the bit. You don't need to sell the reality of the effect that you're trying to pull off. So I'm trying to think if I haven't really done stunts much. I did take a stage combat class in college and it was awesome. But I can tell you right now, I would not, having done the stage combat class, be able to sell that on camera. Not that good, talent wise. Let's see, what else? Number 2, expensive camera package. You come across this all the time. Have I done the too complicated, too expensive camera package on something that was just too big for what we were trying to do? Yes. Especially, and I've been on all sorts of these, especially in film school, because film school lets you rent out gear, which is really cool if you're trying to be a director of photography, because you get to get trained on, some contemporary industry standard equipment. But for a narrative short film, where again, the name of the game is just to get the footage as close to the script as possible, so that when you're in the edit, you have something edited that resembles the script that you started with. A complicated camera package is almost always going to work against you, even if you got it for free, because cinema cameras, ARRI, Red, Sony Venice, these cameras are not meant to be, shot with a one-person camera team. They have whole camera support teams, camera department, a grip department, a lighting department, digital intermediate technician, like color grading on set is a thing. It's just, you need, in order to eke out that last like 10 or 15% of a really high-end cinema camera's image, you need everything else that the Hollywood system, can provide that a short film really can't. Again, the big one is lighting, but it's also just the fact that these big cameras are really hard to handle, and they're heavy. So it's easier just to have, a small, simpler camera. Consumer DSLRs are perfectly fine, especially for short films. You're really not going to benefit much from something significantly more fancy. If you think yourself a director of photography and you want to, show off a little bit on your narrative film, Sony FX3 or any of the Blackmagic smaller cinema cameras, that's fine. Those are basically one person handleable cameras, and you're not going to get way too in the weeds. But yeah, these big, heavy, the bigger, the heavier the camera, the bigger, the heavier the tripod needs to be. The lenses are a lot heavier, and then all the support system, which usually requires extra people. And a short film does not make it, because you're moving slower. So a smaller, simpler camera is usually fine, and the image quality reduction, if there is one, is pretty much not noticeable by the time you're done editing, because that's not this kind of movie. Music videos and commercials, that's where it makes sense to have a really fancy camera with a small crew. But when you're just, again, trying to get everything as much as you can shot so that when you're in the edit, you can turn it into a narrative film. Simple camera tends to be a little bit more efficient. Also, smaller cameras tend to have better battery life. So there you go. Let's talk about honorable mentions on this list. I think the first honorable mention has to be feeding slash paying your cast and crew. Not a waste of money at all. Even if you have a zero budget, production, feed your crew well. That's the golden rule. In film school, a lot of pizza, a lot of Subway, but when it comes to actually trying to take something seriously, even if I'm on zero budget, I plan for a $10+ a meal per person food budget for my crew and for my cast because it matters. So, whatever math you need to do there, your environment may be different, but spend effort and time and money, any of it that you have on feeding your cast and crew because it matters. So, yeah, Taco Bar is great for one day. Taco Bar is not great for every day. Pizza every day gets a little hard to swallow as a person trying to be professional amongst people trying to be professional. Just saying. The other honorable mention, I'd say, improvised movies. I talk about mumblecore every so often because that's really what was going on when I started my filmmaking journey. A completely improvised movie can exist, does exist. I have ambitions to make some myself. However, when you're trying to do a narrative short film and you've already got the actors, learning lines and the whole production is reading the script, going, we need this scene for this, and the characters are going to do this, and they're going to say this. Stick to that. It's fine to shoot the lines as they are with the actors a couple times and then improvise. You're probably going to throw away the improvised takes in the edit because, you can point to in Hollywood the productions and the actors that can improvise and still make it turn into a movie. It's a different way of working, and it's more complicated, and it's a completely different way of working. And I gotta say, working from a script is 1,000 times easier almost for every production. So I guess that's all the honorable mentions I want to talk about. So number one, top 5 waste of money, not having a plan or abandoning the plan. So shot list, scene list, all that kind of stuff, all the pre-production. It's important. It's important, again, for music videos. It's important for commercials. It's what is going to allow you to get to the edit and hopefully the end of your film when you're doing narrative. So shot list everything, plan as much as you can. Sleepless nights, it's a thing. Nobody sleeps before the first day of shooting anyway. Plan it. The way I like to do it is the A, B, and C plan. So A plan is everything needed, plus everything the director wants, plus everything the director of photography wants, and plus anything the actor might request that's special that isn't completely insane. So that's your best bet. That's your longest possible day. That's if things are going excellent. So you start with that. And then as soon as, you go into your day and things are going too slow or things are going, not as hoped, that's when you downgrade to plan B. And plan B is everything you need to shoot to tell your narrative reasonably, without the pressures of having a gun to your head. So, throwing away fancy stuff, throwing away the experimental stuff, just getting it done. And then plan C is the skeleton script. It's literally every single shot that you need in order to tell your story in the edit. So, it's nice to build out plan C to plan B to plan A, and then when you're on set, start with plan A, and then when time gets tight, go to plan B, and then when time gets real tight, after lunch nearing the end of the day, that's when you go to plan C and you get whatever you can get. Because again, with your narrative stuff, the name of the game is to get it in the can so you can get it to the edit and hopefully You can cut together performances and dialogue in a way that somehow resembles the script you started with. Yeah. So, have I abandoned the plan? This is the one that haunts me the most because I feel like I've come across the too big camera package a lot, especially film school wise. But yeah, the one that it's like, oh man, this is gonna make the film not end. The film is just gonna disappear. Is abandoning the plan. So I'm trying to think if I don't think I've ever abandoned a plan, or when I was in charge creatively, ever really. That we've had days where we're like, well, we're screwed, so we're just gonna call it a day, and then basically start over, which sucks, and don't do that. But I've done that. I've been on stuff where they abandoned the plan, and it goes one of two ways. The result is the same. The first way is things have gone so bad that they abandon the plan, and then it's just chaos and distrust for the rest of whatever the day is going to be, and everybody walks away going, well, there's the end of that. So friendship's over, kind of thing. Option B is you abandon the plan, and then all of a sudden everybody's cool, everybody's excited, everybody's having fun, we're improvising, we're having a great time, everybody's, you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh man, I'm so glad I did that. And then it goes into the edit and you realize none of the stuff is compatible with any of the stuff, and you have to throw it all away basically. So again, as soon as you abandon the plan, the chances of you getting done with the movie just basically goes out the window. So throwing away days I think is bad, but throwing away the whole movie, it's the kiss of death. I'm guilty of it, and keeps me up at night sometimes, but don't do that. So yeah, breakdowns. Top 5, waste some money, bunch of people like extras. It's too complicated for what you're trying to do. Usually I think the upper limit for a no budget short film is the party scene where you have like a dozen or so people around the room. I feel like that's kind of the maximum. And in my experience, it's usually just the crew dressed up as party goers, because those are the people willing to stay the hours to shoot that out. Number 4, fancy camera movement or fancy choreography. Time and place, but again, if you're going to do something fancy like that, that usually makes it about the movie. So whatever the movie was going to be, now it's about this fancy oneer, or like the crane shot that's going to take a day to plan, a day to shoot, and then your third day is your last shooting day, and now you have to go through 5 pages of your 5-page script of dialogue it's a whole thing. Number 3, complicated stunts or special effects. See, problem number 4. It's just, if it's complicated stunts, that's what the movie's going to be about all of a sudden. And so if that's what you want, that's what you want. But again, it's going to take forever. So movies take a long time to make. Adding complicated stuff makes it way longer. Number 2, expensive camera package. Yeah, I think I've covered that. It's nice to have fancy toys, but time and place. Now these days, I try to really get a good understanding of the scale of the project, especially if I'm going to bring a camera to it, because I have a cinema camera. Well, I have a Blackmagic cinema camera, so a cinema camera, and I have a consumer camera, and I have my phone, and there's a time and place for each of those. The Blackmagic cinema camera is a really specific, a lot of things have to get checked off before I decide to bring my Blackmagic out, just because it's slower going than my Panasonic consumer camera, and I need a bunch more batteries. So number 1, not having a plan, abandoning the plan. At some point I'm going to do a podcast on set stories, on set disaster stories, because everybody that has worked on any film of any size has disaster stories, and abandoning the plan is one of the hallmarks of things just absolutely imploding and friendships being ended, and like people coming back to collect their money kind of stuff. So this isn't to scare you, this is just to say, hey, the whole thing is trial by error, and I've made all these mistakes, and so will you, but I think it's worth putting them in a video just to be aware of what they are. So, you know, hopefully don't make the same mistakes over and over again. Yeah. So anyway, that's what it is. Like, share, subscribe. What do you think? Catch you next time.